Hello, music appreciation students, and welcome to Harmonious Times, our discussion of the fourth element, the element of harmony. All right, harmony. What is harmony? Why does it matter in music? Is it one of the essential elements, or is it something that can be left out? We're going to explore all of that in this unit here, in the fourth unit, and I'm not sure if this will be a multi-video session or not. I'll let you know by the end of the video if I'm going to do two videos or just one, because I don't really have a lot of slides, but there's actually a lot of information to cover when it comes to talking about harmony, and harmony tends to be something that somewhat confuses people. So I'm hoping we can make some easy clarity for you here. So basically, the first thing we want to look at is the definition of harmony. What is harmony? Harmony is one or more pitches that support a melody. Okay? And I think I need to say as well, they happen concurrently with a melody. Happen concurrently. That is the worst penmanship I could ever have. I am so sorry. But hopefully you can read that. So, what I mean by that is that the harmony is going to happen at the same time the melody is happening. So sometimes when you're listening to a song, you may be like, "Well, I don't hear the harmony," but it's because it's happening at the same time with melody. So it is adding extra oomph, for lack of a better word, to the melody. Okay, so it gives it that support. Harmony, where melody is the vertical, or I'm sorry, the horizontal plane of pitch. Melody goes from left to right, and it's the line that we can follow. Harmony is going to be the verticalization. So it's a vertical phenomenon. So it's like I have a note of melody up here, and then I have a chord that happens underneath it, or a chord is implied underneath it. So this could be the melody, this is the harmony. Okay, and it doesn't have to be three pitches, but it most commonly is. We'll talk about that in just a moment. And we're all right here. Harmony is most often expressed via chords, and chords, they're not limited to triads, but triads are the most common in Western music. Okay, there are different types of chords that exist, and if you're somebody who has studied music, you're going to know that there are more than just these triad chords that exist. But by and large, the musical system that we live within and that we are most familiar with, that you can turn on your radio and hear it on any given radio station, that's going to be triadic harmony, where we're building chords in thirds. Moving on here. So, what are chords? In Western culture, it's a combination of three pitches above a given tone. And I say above a given tone because every chord has what we call its root. Okay? Now, not all chords are in root position. And if you are somebody who plays a lead sheet, or knows how to read like tablature or whatever, sometimes you'll be playing a song and you'll see like C, and that lets you know that you play a C chord. Well, you're going to play that C chord in what we call root position. But sometimes you may see C/E, which means it's a C chord, but the E is going to be the bass note. Well, that's still a C chord, you're just now playing it in inversion. Okay, so if you read lead sheets, that's what's going on there. Okay, the chord, the triad, is the most common chord in Western music. It is the foundation upon which 90+% of all Western music is built upon. Okay, and we use these four descriptors here to talk about chords. Okay, there are major chords, there are minor chords, augmented and diminished. Now, there are other types of chords, but I don't talk about those for terms of this class. There are 9 chords, and there are 13 chords, and there are, diminished 7 chords, and all of this. For the purposes of this class, we really don't need all of that. If you can just wrap your head around to be comfortable with the types of chords that are major, minor, augmented, and diminished, and you don't even have to know how they function, you just have to know they exist, I'll be quite happy. Okay? Building chords on major and minor scales, this slide kind of got cut off on the bottom right there. I apologize. But essentially, what we can do, and I think this is on the next slide here. Yes, we can take a scale like C major, okay? And I'm going to just color in the note heads. So, like the C, D, E, I hope you can see this, F, G, A, B, and C. I've colored those in red, okay? So this bottommost line here is the C major scale. And so all that has happened now is that we have built a triad by combining two intervals of a third above the notes that make up the C major scale, okay? And by doing that, we've built triads off of each of the scale degrees. So I'm going to quickly mark some stuff out here so I can show you some really cool stuff. Okay, so I've scratched out 4 chords, you notice. And I left the 1 chord, these are Roman numerals. So I left the 1 chord, the 4 chord, the 5 chord, and back to the 1. Those are the major chords of the major scale, okay? This is the most important chord of them all, the 1 chord. It's the chord that we come back to. It's the chord that gives us this feeling of home, okay? The 5 chord is the second most important chord. So all music you've ever heard is a 1 chord going to a 5 chord and ultimately coming back to 1. That's the basis of Western music, okay? Now, what we do between is where things get a little bit more interesting, and I'll show you some things here in a little bit called teleological charts where you can write your own chord progressions. But what you see here is basically the foundational harmonic motion of all Western music is 1 going to 5 and back to 1. Now, depending on the type of music, the type of piece, and the type of composer, they can do a lot of really interesting things. But it's really, starting at home, going to visit somebody else, but ultimately coming back home. All right, now, in a major key, which this is C major, okay? This is C major, so C with a capital M. The 1, 4, 5 chords are major chords, okay? Then the ones that I marked out here, 2 is actually lowercase, 3 is lowercase, and 6 is lowercase. These are minor chords. So major means they're going to sound happy, they're going to sound bright. That's the, sort of the elementary school general ed music teacher approach is major chords are happy, minor chords are sad. We can argue that, but let's just live in that world right now where major chords are happy. I forgot to circle the 4 chord in red. It's a happy chord. So 1, 4, and 5 are major. 2, 4, and 6 are minor. And then we got this fun little friend over here, 7. It's lowercase as well, but it gets that little fancy circle. It gets to wear an earring. And that little circle tells us that this chord is diminished. So this is the most unstable. 7 is very unstable. It doesn't leave you feeling at peace. We get to 7 and 7 has to go somewhere. So that's just kind of the Roman numeral process. So when we get to these teleological charts, you can see how this will work. So let's just go ahead and hold on. We use the Roman numerals. It's just kind of driving that point home to tell us a lot of information about the chords. And we also combine those Roman numerals with little numbers to tell us the type of chord and how we should play it. And that's called figured bass. And it's something that developed in the Baroque era and became really the standard for people who played the continuo instruments. So we will be learning more about continuo instruments in Unit 5. And you'll see a discussion about figured bass there. All right, so how do we use harmony? Basically, harmony for most of us comes in the form of chord progressions, which is the purposeful movement of chords. And they all end with a cadence. And look at this cadence. The strongest cadence is from the dominant 5 chord to the tonic or the 1 chord. Remember what I told you, all songs are a journey of 1 going to 5 coming back to 1. That's most every song you've heard. If you're a prolific listener of different types of musics and classical music and experimental music, that may not be the case. But by and large, the music that you hear is a 1 chord that goes to a 5 and ultimately comes back to a 1. Okay? And this harmonic movement is emphasized in the bass line because we need that really strong feeling of 1, we need that strong feeling of 5, and we need that strong feeling of 1 again. And whenever we don't get that, even though you don't know what's going on, your senses are like, something's not right. You know when a song isn't over. The Beatles played around with this on, I can't remember the album, and I used to play it for the face-to-face section. But the song does not end on 1, so you're left hanging, and you're just waiting for the song to end, but it doesn't end because they deprive you of 1. So it was a really wonderful experiment there. They did a lot of experimental things on that album. I just can't remember the album name off the top of my head right now. All right, consonants. These 2 words you really need to memorize, consonance and dissonance. So consonance is peaceful, agreeable. Your major chords are consonant. Your minor chords are consonant, okay? But it depends on how they're used. I'll say that. But major chords are always consonant. Minor chords are pretty consonant as well. We wouldn't label a minor chord dissonant, okay? They are the chords that pieces of music are built upon, okay? Dissonant harmonies are those harmonies that leave us feeling very unstable. They're disagreeable. They leave us feeling really tense and unstable. 7 chord, I said that chord was diminished in the major key. It's a little bit different in minor keys. But in the major key, whoops, just dropped my microphone. I left my good recording equipment at work, so I hope this is decent. But the 7 chord in a major key is diminished, and diminished chords just have a sound that is very unstable. It's not very happy. You should just Google up diminished chord sound and listen to it, because it's really just not a peaceful sound. All right, so here are those teleological charts I was telling you about. So this is a major key chord progression chart. So what you can do here is you can start on 1, because we always want to start on 1. 1 is always important. We got to establish what key we're in. Okay, every song you've ever heard starts in a key. Just Google it. You can find out what it is. 1 can go anywhere. 1 goes anywhere. And then you start following the chart. So if I start on 1 and let's say I want to go all the way over here to 3. Cool. Well, I've got choices I can make now. 3 could go to 4, or it could go to 6. If I want to go to 6, cool. 6 can go to 5, which can go to 1, or 6 can go to 4. So if I were to go 6 to 4, then 4 could go to 2, then 2 could go to 5, and 5 could go to 1. That'd be a progression. Okay? Or I could play around with it. What's really cool is most every song you've ever heard is in this chart, one way or another. And we'll talk about common chord progressions here in just a moment. I hope the sound of my dog barking and my children fighting downstairs isn't coming through this. All right, so now we have the minor key progression chart. Now, I've not talked a lot about minor keys because minor keys are kind of a beast all unto themselves. But similar thing here. We start on 1, but notice now that 1 is in a lowercase because it's minor, and that's how we designate minors. 1 can go anywhere. Depending on where I go, I've got to follow the chart. So if I want to say, I want to go from 1 to 2, diminished. Well, 2 diminished can go to 5, or it can go to 7. So I'm going to go to 5, and I'm back at 1. So then I could go from this 1 now, let's say to 3. I could go from 3 over here to 4, go from 4 to 2, my 2 to 5, my 5 to 7, and then I'm going to take the 7 back to 6, and then I could go from 6 to 4, and from 4 to 5, from 5 to 1, and I could play around with this all day. And notice too, I get a few more options that I could skip right from the diminished 2 or the 4 right to 1. So there are different options depending on which teleological chart you use. So if you're somebody who knows how to tinker around a little bit on the piano or on the guitar or whatever it may be, see what you can come up with these. These you can come up with some really interesting chord progressions, and that's all you're doing is playing chord progressions, but people will just be blown away. And that's if you ever go to hear, like people playing piano at a restaurant, or people who are maybe doing like the dueling pianos, and people get so impressed with that. I'm going to kind of show you how that sausage is made, because it's really just about using common chord progressions. So I've put a few of the most common chord progressions. I don't know why my slides are cutting off on the bottom. So you're missing just a little bit of information on the bottom here, and I apologize. So make sure that you look on the slideshow that is actually uploaded for you to use. But the common chord progressions that we have, the 3-chord song, a lot of hymns are 3-chord songs. So it's the 1 going to 4 going to 5. Really basic, straightforward, not complicated stuff. Then, this chord progression is the most common chord progression that you hear. It's in pop music, it's in country music, it's everywhere. You can't escape it. The 1 4 6, or the 1 5 6 4. So it's down a fifth, up a second, down a fifth. It's you hear it in Pachelbel's Canon in D, and it's just kind of been throughout music history this very popular chord progression. So in the slideshow, there's a video that I posted with this chord progression in it, where these guys just show you the masses of pop songs you can sing to this. So that's what a lot of, like these improv jazz, or not jazz, sorry, improv piano guy type players do. They just know the chord progression. So you learn the chord progression and you can play anything. All right. Then another common one is the 1 6 2 5, the 1 6 4 5, which is the doo-wop progression. If you've ever played Heart and Soul on the piano, you know that dum ba da bum bum ba da da bum ba da da bum ba da da, Heart and Soul. You know that song. That's the Heart and Soul progression. All right, moving on here. So this marginally relevant video that won't play, obviously, that is the 4-chord song, so please listen to it. And then we're almost to the end here. I'm sorry, this is a longer video than I usually do, but we're just going to get it all done in one go. So tonality. Tonality is really important. It's the organization of music around a central pitch note, a central harmony as well. And when we're in class, I do a lot better job of talking about this. But if all of the pitches are built around C, we would say the tonality of the peach is of the piece, not the peach. The piece is C. But then it may be all the pitches center around A. So then it's like, okay, well then it's A. So that's the tonic pitch. But then we have to decide, is this a major piece or a minor piece? Okay, so that's where we start talking about key. Okay, so tonality and key, they are so intertwined, they're almost interchangeable. So if the tonic of a piece is C, then we have to look and see, is it C major or is it C minor? Does it sound happy? Does it sound sad? So when you're doing your listening and I'm like, well, what's the tonality of this piece? That's what I'm looking for. Is it happy sounding? Is it sad sounding? And then you could research to see how correct you are, how close you are to that being correct. Okay? So when a piece has a tonality around C and it sounds minor, we would say the piece is in C minor. Or if it's the central pitch seems to be A, but it sounds really bright and happy, then we would say it's an A major. Okay? And really, as far as keys go, that's what we talk about, major keys and minor keys. There's the circle of fifths that you can research on your own. There's those sorts of tools out there. I don't make you learn that because that's not what this course is for, but just kind of know that when we're talking about keys and tonality, we're talking about major versus minor. Okay? So I hope that you found this information helpful. Hope it cleared some confusion up if you had any. Make sure that you read Chapter 3 of The Complete Idiot's Guide to Music History. Make sure that you actually look at the different resources I put online for you as well. As always, if you have any questions or concerns, shoot me an email and I will help you as much as I can. Thank you guys. Have a great one. Bye.